Hey everybody, this is the inaugural Civic Roadshow candidate interview.
Excited.
We're here at Books and Books in Coral Gables and we're interviewing Robin Peguero. Robin, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey everyone, I'm Robin Peguero. I'm running for Congress in Florida 27 in Miami, where we saw a great victory in the city of Miami mayoral election, 20-point swing toward the Democrats. So this is a prime pickup opportunity.
That's amazing. What was the first thing that made you consider running for office?
You know, it always starts with my parents. They were immigrants to this country, my father from the Dominican Republic and my mom from Ecuador. And the first thing they did when they got here was enlist in the U.S. Army. And so that example of immediate sacrifice and service to this new country of theirs is what has inspired me to always do public service. But, I decided, just obviously in the past couple of months earlier this year to really put myself out there and run for this seat because my representative wasn't doing a darn thing. She was standing by while the president was allowing members of our community to be deported without due process. She was taking away health care from middle-class, working-class families in order to give tax buyouts and tax breaks to corporations and billionaires. And I was fed up without having a voice in Washington. And I said, you know what, I should be that voice. So
That's fantastic. So can you tell us a little bit about who the current representative of this area is?
yeah, her name is Congresswoman Maria Elvira Salazar. And she was a journalist, TV journalist in Spanish language media for a while. She, unfortunately, is in the back pocket of billionaires and corporations. One prime example here in Florida, FP&L is seeking to introduce the greatest rate hikes in history right now when we saw super high electricity bills over the summer. And she has said not one word about it. And this is a state monopoly, by the way. So this isn't the market that has created these high prices. They're asking for more money for their CEOs, for bonuses for their executives, when middle-class, working-class folks can barely afford their bills. And the reason she has said nothing is because she is in the top 10 of GOP members who have received lobbyist money from FP&L. So we know what side she's on. She's on the side of them, the corporations and billionaires, and not on the side of all of the rest of us. And that's who she is, unfortunately, at heart. And somebody, unfortunately, who also doesn't come out into the community, is hawking instead her own personal book that she's lining her pockets with profits, as opposed to holding town halls, has never held a town hall, is not engaging with the community. And that's what we're meant to do as representatives.
So, as somebody who is actively in the community and speaking with your neighbors and your possible future constituents, who do you think, or what do you think those conversations are that are happening on the local level in regards to the current representative and what kind of changes people are asking for?
They voted in the last election for prices to come down. They were focused on their pocketbooks, and I get that because how can you think about anything else? Even saving our democracy if you're worried about where you're going to get your next meal. So I understand that impulse, and I am working class myself. My parents raised me, my father, a school teacher in the public school system, my mother, a mail carrier, both really, really proud union members, working class family in Hialeah, Florida is where they raised me. And so I remember having to worry about making ends meet, about whether the paycheck will last into the next, about where we were going to get our food, and how the high price of everything. And so that's what people want us to focus on. And I think, government needs to get back to the basics. Number one, we need to stay out of people's private lives. The government is way too big to fit in people's bathrooms, their bedrooms, their doctor's offices. Why don't we focus instead on the two things that people really want from their government? Number one, safety. Make sure, we feel safe in our communities and in our neighborhoods. And I did that as a homicide prosecutor for 7 years. And then also help everybody have a chance at the American dream. It's not guaranteed equality in terms of results, but equality of opportunity, just having that shot, just having the ability. My folks on working class salaries were able to own a home and build a family and ultimately send me off to Harvard College and Harvard Law School, which I worked my way through. I did financial aid and work study. But that's to go from immigrants where they didn't know the language to, a son who's a lawyer and now running for office. That is what I want America to be about. And I want that for everybody.
Do you have any working campaign promises right now? Do you have any legislation that you expect to put forth if you're elected?
Some of the things I want to work on, as I said, is to be focused like a laser on the economy and on helping people get by. We need to raise the federal minimum wage that hasn't been touched in over a decade. We need to provide people with a public option. So we need to extend these ACA, Affordable Care Act subsidies that in this district is so critical. It's the number one district in terms of people enrolled in the Affordable Care Act. And it's past January 1st, so now people have seen their premiums double, they've seen them triple. 200,000 people in this community who are going to have to make choices between food and healthcare and groceries and gas. They're going to have to change their life because of it. And then an additional 93,000 in this community are just going to go without healthcare entirely.
And that's just in this community.
That's just in this district. Those 93,000 are just going to say, I can't afford it, so I'm not going to have it. And what's going to happen, that's heartbreaking. But also, just in terms of smart policy, those folks are going to go to the emergency room. They're going to get treated anyway. And there's no free lunch. We're still going to have to pay for it. Our premiums will still go up anyway. So it just makes economic sense to allow these folks to keep their health care, to get preventative care, because that's just less costly for all of us in the long run.
How would you address the, concerns or allegations that immigrants are just receiving free health care and that that's a good reason to essentially not extend those ACA subsidies? As someone who is born from immigrant parents, who has done everything the right way as they tell everyone to do, how do you respond in a way that your neighbors and your community members can not only relate to but be inspired by when it comes to that kind of rhetoric being pushed so heavy against healthcare for human beings in general?
Well, number one, we got to be truthful about the current state of things. It's a lie. People who are undocumented are paying so much into the system through taxes, and they're getting no benefits out of it whatsoever. And they're, of course, hiding in the shadows, afraid to come out, and especially now that the administration has diverted resources from the border into our cities so that we have ICE agents who are masked, refuse to identify themselves in unmarked vans, sweeping people off the streets. So they are not. They are contributing so much more than they're getting. And the Congresswoman's bill, she has a bill, where she basically exploits their labor. She says, come on out of the shadows. It's called dignity, not citizenship, she calls it. So we will continue to have you prop up those sectors of our economy where you're needed, the agricultural sector, the construction sector. If we're worried about prices of grocery, prices of housing, imagine what will happen if we continue to get rid of our neighbors who are propping up those sectors. Come out of the shadows, do that, contribute to the economy, and you will never, ever be able to earn your citizenship. You'll never be able to get the fruits of your labor, the benefits that you deserve if you've been in this country and contributed. And, so I think it's not true. It's not true that they're taking away. And then, as I mentioned, people are going to go to the emergency room. They're going to get treated. We're going to have to pay for it. So why not be smart about it and allow folks on the front end to get their preventative care?
Absolutely.
I think that I would also add that anyone who is saying that illegal immigrants are getting free health care in this country under ACA or otherwise are categorically false.
Mm-hmm.
Like, those allegations are categorically false, and non-legal residents of the United States of America are not eligible for ACA subsidies.
That's right.
They cannot apply for them. They do not receive them, and anyone who would say otherwise is grossly conflating EMTALA, which is supposed to be an anti-cruelty act to allow people to receive emergency care in hospitals when it is a life or death situation, to receive that care.
Right, and doctors have a Hippocratic oath, and we want that for them. So of course they're going to be treated, which is, as a compassionate society we want.
The humane thing to do.
It is.
What does running a campaign in Coral Gables look like?
So I live in Coral Gables. The district is entirely all of South Miami. It goes from downtown Miami all the way down to Cutler Bay. And it's been wild. It's been a wild 6 months for me. I've never done anything like this. I'm a first-time candidate, and it is, a lot of meeting folks, which is my favorite part, talking to folks, hearing about their concerns, being out in the community. But it is a lot of also raising money. And one thing I would love to do as somebody, again, working class, who doesn't have independent wealth, and our system is geared so much toward those folks to be able to have an outsized voice in this democracy. I'd love for, us to overturn Citizens United, to outlaw gerrymandering, to have public financing of campaigns, those sorts of things that really, prop up our democracy and allow folks like myself to be able to run and not have to spend so much of your time asking people for money.
Yeah, and that's such a good point to make too, because we've obviously been getting to know several candidates, or many candidates all over the place, and I think one of the biggest struggles that is universal between all candidates regardless of the area is raising the money, because I think a lot of expectation from, more progressive leaning constituents or potential constituents is that you aren't taking whatever kind of money they
Yeah.
perceive to be bad,
Yeah.
right? But I think that some people may not understand that if you're not taking, like, you need money to run a campaign,
Yeah.
and in order to take acceptable money, that requires people power and engagement
Absolutely.
and people on the ground. So I think that's something that needs to be talked about more.
One thing that I think I want to inspire Democrats is we want to be right, and I think we are right on the issues, and we have good policy, but we also need to win, because
Yeah.
being out of power, we can't do it. We can't effectuate change. We can't sit from our couches. In protest and activism, it's perfect and great and important, but we also need voices in elected office, and so. Right now, we can't fight with one hand tied behind our back. This is the system we have. The Republicans they have no qualms about raising all sorts of money. But one thing that I'm proud of is in my first quarter, I was able to outraise the sitting Republican Congresswoman by $115,000. And I did it with small dollar donations from over 2,500 people.
Amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
We love that. We love
And
that.
she did it, her amount, which was less than mine, just a couple of corporations that were giving her money. And it's just follow the money to see where their
people first,
priorities
yeah.
are, right? So we can do it. We can, even if it's small dollar amounts, people across the country who have responded to my January 6th service have been so incredibly generous, and I'm grateful. We can pull together and we can win. And that's what I want people to remember.
So